Hey, Journey family and friends, welcome to Midweek Conversations. Pastor John here, along with Pastor Dustin Agar.
Hey-o.
Good to have you join us this week in Midweek Conversations. Coming off of a couple busy weeks, we started a series called Defining Moments, Baby Dedication, and last week, Mother's Day.
Yes, sir.
And also something happened last week as well. We want to talk a little bit about that we didn't mention last week in Midweek Conversations, and that's Teacher Appreciation.
Yeah, special week.
And it's a special week in the Agard family. Tell them why.
Well, my wife's a kindergarten teacher.
There you go. She's a teacher.
So the combination of Teacher Appreciation Week and Mother's Day, we love on her well.
I hope you dug in that wallet a little bit.
Yeah.
Good.
Took care of her.
So we say Teacher Appreciation, and it's one thing to say thanks, but there's some tangible things that we've done to say thanks here.
Yeah, there's before I get into that, I'll just kind of get on my soapbox. There's what I refer to as a country club mentality sometimes that we can have, whether it's here at church or whether it's in the school, which means I deserve something, so I could treat somebody a certain way. So I could treat a waiter or that, and I would just say, when it comes to your teachers, any year, educators in general, any year is hard. Educators, teachers, principals, counselors, they're overworked and underpaid, underappreciated.
Yeah.
In a good year, this year has been one of the most difficult years in the history of teaching because of COVID and the amount of things they had to manage. And I would just say, maybe you missed last week. A teacher they would not care if you if you came out any day, any week and just said thank you.
Yeah.
And then if God's blessed you with resources to be generous, I would do that. But just, I'm telling you, a thank you can go such a long ways. And so what we did is we've learned a long time ago how the power of a thank you. Yeah. So what we do is in kindergarten through 12th grade is we teach all of our, and this is at both campuses, we've taught our kids how to write a thank you note. And if you're in middle school or high school, you pick one teacher to write a thank you note. What we've done is we take these thank you notes, and then our family pastor attaches a note from him, and we take those, and then we send them to the schools. And so we're taking, literally, we took hundreds of thank you letters and sent them. I did this several years back, and when it was time in August, we did this in May, it was August, it was Meet the Teacher. And I went and met my kid's teacher, and he said, Agard. And he said, wait one sec. He went to his desk, pulled out the note from a student with my note on top. And he said, is this you? I said, yes, sir. He began to tear up. He had been teaching for 17 years and never had a thank you note.
Oh, man. That's
17
awesome.
years. And I'm telling you, we talk about ROI all the time, your return on your investment. A thank you to an educator might be the easiest ROI. It means so much, and it costs you nothing just to show gratitude. Yeah. And so one of the things we've done is we wrote all these notes to thank teachers and educators. Yeah. And then we selected some schools in the community that we have partnership or trying to serve, and we just stocked their lounges. Every school has a teacher lounge. Yeah. And so we would just take care of their drinks and some snacks and just a little note that says, hey, we're with you and we're for you and we love you. Thank you for all that you do. And so we just want the schools and the community to know that we're grateful and that they're making an impact. And so we're able to do that. And that's because of your generosity. Yeah. And so because of your generosity, we're able to serve the schools and let them know, hey, we're with you and we're for you. And so thank you.
Amen. Thank you, all folks that work in public education, private Christian schools, homeschools, all kinds of ways where people are shaping, forming the lives of children, the next generation. We pray that we're a good support and cheerleaders for you. Thank you.
I said this past week at church, I said a quote from Mr. Rogers. He said, the most influential people in the world are parents and teachers, which means the most important people in the world are teachers and parents. And so much truth to that.
Well, we want to kind of shift a little bit as we think about not just people who serve our communities and education, but we're going to turn a little bit to business and leadership.
Yeah.
And there's something that we are going to host again. We didn't do it last summer because of COVID, and nobody hosted anything in August of last year. But in August 5th and 6th this year, Journey is going to once again be a host site for
the Global Leadership Summit.
The Global Leadership Summit.
The Global Leadership Summit is the largest leadership conference in the world. And I want to say it was in over something ridiculous, like over 150 countries, 400,000 people last year, and that was during COVID.
During COVID.
And so we will be a simulcast site. So we will host it here.
Yeah, in person. People will come here.
Yep.
Yeah, on site.
And this is a little bit
at the Apopka Campus.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of an investment for us. But the reason is John Maxwell, leadership guru. I'm going to paraphrase one of his sayings. He says, outside of the favor of God, everything rises and falls on leadership. And we believe that. I mean, outside of the favor of God, everything rises and falls on leadership, whether it's a business, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a church. And so we want to invest in your leadership. We want to invest in leadership in the community that might take a minimum wage employer to learn how to become a manager. And that changes the complete trajectory of their life. Yeah. Or to be able to teach somebody that serves in our church that's a volunteer, how do they become a coach to where they can manage other volunteers? And so we believe one of my heartbeats is leadership development. And so a couple weeks ago, I flew out to Oklahoma City with my wife, TJ, and here's a picture of us. As you can see, it was cold when we went out there. It was in the 30s, believe it or not.
In Oklahoma.
It was, in Oklahoma. It was really cold.
In April.
So we went out there, and it was a host site gathering for churches like us that will host this specifically in the United States. And so I don't think there are international people. This is a room full of sharp people. These are business leaders, principals, educators, pastors, ministry leaders. And really the Global Leadership Conference they really take the idea that if we can invest leadership in you while at the same time glorifying Christ, that's a great place into the marketplace. Mm-hmm. Because Jesus was the greatest leader ever to live. Like literally, there's no greater leader than Jesus. And so as Christians, we should lean in to the leadership principles of Christ as well. And so what we want to do is invest in the community through leadership where somebody might say, listen, I don't even know if I'm into this God thing, but it seems like everybody that goes there grows in their leadership. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, Greg Rochelle said this. He said, I know this might sound arrogant. And he goes, but I believe it. He said, I believe the best place for somebody to grow in their leadership in the world is by volunteering or being on staff at Life Church.
Wow.
That's a big statement.
That's a very big statement.
And
he's the lead pastor, founding pastor of Life Church. Tell them a little bit about Life Church and your experience there, because it is one of those. So tell them just a little bit about who Life Church is.
So Life Church. So my wife and I went out to Oklahoma City a couple of days early. We have some friends that work for Life Church, and we wanted to visit with them and kind of get a little bit behind the scenes of Life Church and go to some of their campuses. Life Church, I think, is the biggest church in the United States.
I think so.
And in my opinion, is the most one of the most influential in the world. And you probably don't even know that, but they are. They have 36 locations in 11 states. They have one.
Think about that. 36 locations, 11 states.
That's a lot.
That's a national business.
And these are not small campuses.
Right.
These are thousands.
So a church the size of Journey would be like an average size campus for them.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly. And well-oiled machine. And their leadership was just, they weren't trying to teach leadership, but we caught it.
Oh, yeah.
And just the weekend we were there, without a huge gospel invitation, saw over 900 salvations.
Wow.
Just that. So this is a church that God is using in incredible ways. And one of the things that I was aware of course, Life Church's influence. And actually, before I get into that, I'll share a couple more things. One is you may be blessed by Life Church more than you know.
Didn't even know it, probably.
You didn't even know. They are the ones that created the Bible app, which is the Youversion Bible app. Yeah. And the stats for the Bible app are staggering. I mean, literally reaching billions of people through their history. It's unbelievable.
It's one of the most downloaded apps.
Hundreds of languages, hundreds of translations.
Bible reading plans. I mean, it's
millions of completed Bible reading plans.
So just an example of how you could use. So, a few weeks ago, we did Shift Your If, which was on Romans 8. And so, Melinda, I gave the challenge. I said, you should read Romans 8 every day. And my wife took me up on that. And she started reading Romans 8 every day. And sometimes I would read it with her. And I said, hey, let's do the Youversion app and let's have somebody read it to us. And so we would find on the Youversion app, we would find different translations that have an audio presentation where someone's reading it to you. Not all the translations do, but some of them do. And we listen to Romans 8. But that's a way the Life Church made that possible through the Youversion platform.
These are some of the stats of Youversion. As of 2020, so as of last year, there are 1.4 billion Bible reading plans completed.
Wow.
1.4 billion. 524 million people shared an image or a Bible verse from Youversion. I mean, 43 billion chapters of the Bible have been read. Just incredible numbers, as you can see. That comes from Life Church.
And the story of how they came up with that is such a cool story. They tell it way better than we do. And there's some ways you can look. You've probably seen already have seen the Bible version app come up, and you can download that. Craig Groeschel has one of the most listened to leadership podcasts, and you can connect there online with him. He does a once a month leadership podcast. A lot of leaders listen to that. And Craig Groeschel is the global champion for the Global Leadership Summit. He's still the pastor of Life Church, very involved in leading that ministry, but he is the face, so to speak, and the presider of the Global Leadership Summit for the past 3 summits.
Yeah, you mentioned his podcast. This is not just for ministry people. I mean,
exactly.
It is leadership.
It's about leadership.
And and they bring in people from leadership. I mean, they brought in, I think his name's Chris Vaughn, who was the head FBI negotiator.
Yes.
And you and I have talked about that.
I love that. Yeah.
I mean, just incredible stuff that will
Never Split the Difference is that guy's book.
Never Split the Difference.
Never Split the Difference.
Teaches you how to negotiate.
Teach you how to negotiate. That's the guy that said on the Global Leadership Summit 2 years ago when we hosted here, they interviewed him and he said when he goes to a car lot or, you remember that story?
I do.
When he said, the salesman asked, he said, I want that. How am I supposed to pay for that? How am I supposed to do that? And that worked for this guy.
Yep.
It's just amazing, some of the negotiating principles. But that's just an example of some helpful content and material. So it's a combination. Global Leadership Summit it's not just for pastors, probably not even exclusively for people in the church. It's for leaders in the community. We got a cool story of a guy in our church, one of my good golfing buddies, Jim Tharp. Shout out to Mr. Tharp. Jim has been a big Global Leadership Summit proponent for many years, and he is a graduate of Oak Ridge. Is it
Oak Ridge High School?
Oak Ridge High School, yeah. Oak Ridge, I almost said Oak Hills, but Oak Ridge High School here in Orlando. Yep. And what Jim has done through the years is he has reached out to some of the top students and pays for them to go to the Global Leadership Summit. Cool. And he's done that for years.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And just as a way of investing in them in the next generation and teach them basic leadership principles.
It's so good. And part of this stuff is just good to be around other like-minded leaders that make you better. I mean, sharp people come to this. So want to encourage you to and invite you to register, not just you, maybe your team. I know in the past we've had people literally bring their team of 6 or 8 that they're in charge of, and this is the way that they get poured to them. It's not a conference you got to go out of town at, so the expenses is a little minimal compared to that. And it just gives us an opportunity to serve you and your team and just inject leadership and at the same way be used to reach and serve the community. So that's a little bit of Life Church, a little bit of Global Leadership Summit, but then Life Church also has Open. So they were one of the first people that created this concept called Open.
Yeah.
So a while ago, when a pastor wanted to give his messages away, you could buy his tape cassettes, right?
And then CDs.
And then CDs.
Yeah, right.
Open, and a lot of churches have done this, but they were one of the first. Everything that they have internally, they have a website and give it away for free.
It's free.
And literally, churches all around the world use their leadership material, their job descriptions, their children's ministry curriculum, student ministry messages, their scripts, 100% free. So they use that. Then they came up with this thing called, it's kind of called nickname CHOP, Church Online Platform.
I was going to say, it's another way that a lot of our folks don't even know how Life Church, that it's innovation. So tell them.
So they innovated and came up with this Church Online platform. So if you were to tune into our website and watch a service online.
Through journeychristian.com, watch online.
Yep. You will be actually watching, the guts of what you're watching it through is a software system that came out of Youversion. So the way that there's prayer requests, the way that there's notes, the way everything that's set up is something they created and just give to the capital C Church.
Yeah.
And here's what's cool. While I was there, I read in Romans, I believe it's the end of 13. I've been reading the Message translation. And this is what Romans, we'll find it and we'll put it on the screen, the exact title. But here's if I'm not mistaken, the Message translation said this: help needy Christians, be inventive in your hospitality. And I'm here in Oklahoma City and I'm reading this, help needy Christians, be inventive in your hospitality. I thought, thank you, Life Church, for living that verse out. They were inventive and are inventive in how they serve in hospitality around the world by just creating these and then give them away. And so what's interesting, and one of the things that you and I were talking about is, I mean, I used to live in LA, I used to live in Atlanta, born and raised downtown Orlando. And I mean, you fly into Oklahoma City, and I felt like we were in the middle of nowhere. If you're from Oklahoma City, I love you. I'm not knocking it, but I felt like it was more like a town than a city. It just felt small.
Right.
And before I even stepped foot on any of the campus, I thought, God, and in your sovereignty, would you use a church in the middle of nowhere to reach the world?
Well, and that's literally what's happened.
And they literally have done that. And it began to process this idea that so many of us want to jockey and elbow our way to the top. And Jesus, he says, don't do that.
Right.
He says, he specifically says, don't choose the best seat, go to the back and let the leader bring you up. And I thought, what a great picture Pastor Craig Rochelle had, where he said, you know what, this is where God's called me. And we're going to do what I believe the vision is from here. And then God used that to go out. I don't know if they would have the same impact if he said, you know what, we got to be in LA. We got to be in New York. We got to be in a major city in order for this to happen. Not that people that go to minister to those places are bad. It's only bad if God called you to OKC.
What's the old statement is to bloom where you're planted.
Bloom where you're planted.
They bloom and flourished. And, the scripture we shared here a few weeks ago about journey getting started. Do not despise small beginnings. For the Lord rejoices to see the work progress. And so that's just awesome. Pastor Dustin is the global leadership champion for Journey. So that's part of what Dustin does. And Dustin has a great heart for leadership, investing in leaders, growing himself. And I so love that about you and appreciate that about you. And so this is just a natural outflow for Dustin. He wants to do this. He loves doing this and help making you better as a leader. So you can go right on that link right there and just register for Global Leadership Summit. You find out a little more about it. The whole cast of speakers, some of the best leadership speakers on different topics in the world. Literally,
I've been waiting for my call. Nobody's called me to speak yet.
Well, next year.
Maybe next year. Next year.
But it's a world-class faculty. Really,
it's impressive.
And it's Thursday and Friday, August 5th and 6th. And Journey is a regional host, which means, by the way, it's not just Journey. It's people that go online and say, hey, I live in Orlando. Where am I going to go? So we don't know who's going to come.
Yep.
From all over the Northwest, Orange County and Lake County and those areas that we're serving.
Those host sites are limited. They're not going to put 10 in Orlando.
Right, no.
And
I think there's maybe only 2 other.
Us and First Baptist Orlando.
Yeah,
I
think that's it. So this week we continue in defining moments. Pastor Dustin is going to be sharing with us a message at Apopka.
Yep.
Pastor Eddie is going to be sharing a message in Lake County. And this week's focus is called Baptism Moments.
Yep.
And Dustin, I'm going to say we have one of the best baptism stories that I know of from any church, anywhere.
It's really cool.
That we're going to talk about this Sunday that you do not want to miss. It will blow you away how God has orchestrated things for this particular baptism story.
Amen. Agree with that.
So
looking forward to it.
We're excited about that. Hey, thanks for joining us this week in Midweek Conversations. I hope you can join us Sunday on site or online. And as always, we're loving the journey.